Okay, so for those of you who are listening to us on the record, play back later, you're very welcome along to the Higher Diploma in Computer Science from WIT. It's Induction Day 2022, and we're going to take you through lots of stuff today to make sure that you get out of the blocks in the right way for success on the program. A lot of you showing up today. I think there's 62 students in total in your class, and hopefully you'll get to meet some of them today in some of the breakout sessions that we'll be doing. I'll introduce you to some of my colleagues who are here as well. Eamon de Lester.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for making it along today. I've spoken, I think, to just about everybody, well, exactly everybody at this stage. It's been quite a journey getting here from your first interest in the program, going back months ago now. We've all spoken on Zoom, and you had various hoops to jump through with registering with WIT, Springboard, and all the paraphernalia, including your fees, of course, in the last few weeks. And finally, we asked you to do a few tasks before we started here. We'll talk about those a little bit later on. So great to get to the starting line. Great also to see you all introducing yourselves on the Connections channel. Thanks for being forthcoming there, and it was great fun to see everybody chiming in. You can edit that, by the way, so if you want to correct anything, you can do so or remove it, but we're happy enough to leave that there as a permanent record of your introduction. As Colin mentioned, we've got 60 plus on the course. We've got a waiting list as well, but we probably won't go too much beyond the numbers we currently have now. That's probably our limit, I would think. Got an interesting day lined up for you. You can relax maybe for the first hour or so. We won't be putting you on the spot. Well, we don't intend to put you on the spot anyway, really, so don't worry about that. But will be a little bit of participation later on, but nothing too demanding, I think.
So we might take it through the agenda, and then we'll crack on with getting through some of the materials that we have for you today. Okay. Okay. So
I can put that up, Colin, if you like.
Yes, please. Thanks.
Let me share it here.
There we go. So we've joined the room at 9:20, 9:30, the agenda. So let's run through that now. We're going to be looking at online practices, how to learn online. What are the technologies we're going to be using? How the semester is laid out, the technologies we're using, and how you're going to communicate. The important thing to take away from today is, you know, have you got all the tools that you need to do the course? Are you up and running with them? And the fact that you're in Zoom here, it means you've come through Slack. That's really good. But I'm going to shout out straight away. You want the desktop applications. So if some of you may be doing this on your mobile phone or on your iPads or whatever, can I recommend that you have Zoom and Slack in particular, have the desktop and the mobile versions of those installed. Okay. We're going to look at the online practices. At 11 o'clock, we're going to break out, and we're going to put you into small groups during our tea break. And Laura McGibney will be coming back to speak with you about the online experience. Laura is a life coach and also supports the student experience on this program. So she'll be helping you get comfortable with your classmates and with learning, and has lots and lots of tips for managing this marathon that you're embarking on today, because you know, you've got lots of energy today. It's the start, and we want to make sure that you don't run out of energy. So we're going to be helping you to manage that, if you like. At 12:30, we'll be looking at module overviews from Frank Walsh, Karen Cal, Roseanne Burney, and Mary Ling. So introducing you to more of the team. Those introductions will be in relation to the modules will be coming up after the summer break, so semester 2. But today we're going to try and narrow it in. We'll give you the big picture, but we'll be focusing in by the end of today on what you'll be doing for the next 12 to 15 weeks, semester 1 modules. And that will happen. We'll actually go through the syllabus for each of those at 2 o'clock. And at 2:30, we'll be doing a practical session using Slack. Slack is a very important tool for this course. We do not do emails. So as of from today, we're finished with email. Okay. If you want to get in touch with anyone on the program, you'll need to do it through Slack, because we don't wade through emails. So today is going to be about getting you comfortable with Slack. When you need to do a voice call or a video call, that happens through Zoom, but that's completely integrated into Slack as well. So when you hit the telephone icon, it's going to make a Zoom call. Because of that, Slack is our one-stop shop for communication. After today's class, we will be disabling chat in Zoom. I did notice a lot of you saying hello, and we welcome that today in the Zoom chat. But after today's session, all that conversation will happen in Slack. Okay. Feel free to interrupt us at any stage. I think I speak for most people there. You can interrupt us unless somebody says otherwise. If you have questions, and we'll try to take those. And then finally, in the afternoon, if some of your questions haven't been answered, or you've anything that you're still worried about, you can book a session, and we'll make that bookable slot available probably during lunch. So you'll be able to book a slot if you still need one-on-one. But hopefully we'll address any of your concerns or any of the issues in getting started on the program in this morning's session. Okay.
Thanks, Colin. So if you like, 10 to 11 is about us outlining what the program is like, how it's structured, how you're going to interact with our learning materials, and specifically some patterns of interacting with Slack. So Colin will be giving you an overview of the program itself, how it's structured, the full 2 years. I'm going to walk you through our tutors course delivery platform, just to give you some context and show you some of the basics. Hopefully they're reasonably obvious, but I think it's useful for at some point we point and say this button does that and so on. And our colleague Pete Windle, who will join us at that point, is going to walk you through our vision of how Slack can be used on the program. Slack, I guess, is a international standard now at this point of group communication, and we think we're pushing the bounds of it a little bit, and Pete will give you a little overview of how it might work out. Purpose of the 11:30 to 12:30 slot is for you to give some of your reflections on how you're feeling about the morning so far and your participation in the course, and for, as Colin has pointed out, for Laura to give you perspective on what it's like to learn online. Laura has a lot of experience working with this program over a number of years. Her brief is student engagement. So she dips into student sentiment a lot and has a very interesting and fascinating perspective on the way in which students' attitudes towards the program shifts as they go through a few years. And she's got fantastic tips and advice on how to settle into a program like this. So really looking forward to that. Colin's gone through the rest of it. Again, I'd emphasize that the afternoon bookable sessions are only if you need it, really. We can always do direct messages at any stage, but if there's some compelling issue, I noticed that you did have a go at the web development labs, but less so at the programming ones. That's fine. You've got another week in which to perhaps have a go at those introductory labs before we start the week after next. Those labs aren't designed to be a test or in any form of kind of outline assessment or anything. They're just tasters of what you will be doing, and largely to see that you're workstations work okay, and you can grasp some of the basic patterns of the labs themselves. If you didn't complete those labs, not a big deal really. Might try and get them done by next week. And if there's some difficulty with your setups, we can deal with that either briefly this afternoon or in more detail next week. Okay, I think we're on schedule column. Do we want to start with the overview, or do you want to open up for any questions at this stage?
We'll just pause for a few questions if anybody has anything they want to ask straight off. and you know, don't be shy.
It's early in the morning for that kind of thing, Colin.
Probably, yeah. We haven't broken them in yet. Listen, what I might say to you at this stage is, if you could go into Slack, and most of you have already been in there, you will see Eamon has posted Workshop 1. He's created a channel called Workshop 1. So I'm going to just enter something in there. I'm going to say, give me a thumbs up. Okay, which I've now done in Workshop 1. And what I'd like you to do is to give me a thumbs up on that post that I just posted in there. That's great.
If you're not in Workshop 1, you can just peek at the general channel. The very last message mentions Workshop 1. Click on that and you'll be enrolled automatically. It's a bit confusing that you can't see Workshop 1 by default unless you star it, but we'll get into all that later.
Yeah. Maybe I'll maybe support that, Eamon. Just one sec. So here's Eamon's posts, and if you click on the Workshop 1, it will ask you to join the channel. You can join the channel, and here I've posted, give me a thumbs up. And you can see there's different ways of doing this. We can do a reaction, or some of you have replied with a thumbs up. So for those of you that have replied, I'm going to get straight into it if that's okay, because we do have a bit of time. I'm going to ask you to delete your message now. So Frank, Arod, Win, this is great. You gave me a thumbs up. But what I'm going to ask you to do now is to click this one instead. Okay. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, I can't see that actually in the general.
In general. Okay, so here's general. And you'll see a post from Eamon.
Can't see any of the posts actually in general. I'm in the right place. So
HDIP 22 and general. Yeah.
Check.
And once you do that, you'll need to click on Workshop 1. Okay.
I'm going to direct message Abby there while you're on it.
Okay, perfect. So that's great. And this just allows us to keep things manageable, because as you can see, with 65 students, it gets into a mess very, very quickly. So we're going to be showing you throughout the day how we can keep all our posts managed so that, you know, it's easier to follow for if you're going back reading over it later, as many of you will be. Okay. So likewise for Eugenio, Paul has done it. Garrod might get you just to click on this one rather than posting the thumbs up. Okay. So it's all baby steps this morning. So we will take time out to do things like that when we have time. Okay, so I think we might go through the next bit. Eamon, just give me a second. Yeah. There we go. So this is the team. These are the lecturers that you're going to be coming in contact with and tutors over the coming months and years. Roseanne Burney, Richard Frisbee, Mary, Dermot, Laura, we mentioned, Joan, you've already been speaking to, Carolyn Cahill, David Drone, Jimmy McGibney, Peter Windle, Eamon, myself, Frank, and Dave Hearn and Connor O'Neill. So you will be introduced to quite a few of these lecturers today, as they will introduce the modules that you will be taking for the first semester and second semester. But you have the contact details for them all there. So what we're going to do over the next 20 minutes or so, I think it is, we're going to take a look at the context and objectives for today's session, and also the course, how the course is laid out in semesters and modules, and then the calendar and the timetable and the assessment sequencing. So we'll look at the classes, when they run, what times, what weeks they're running, when you've got breaks, when you've got assignments due. Okay, and after that, we'll then get into each of the modules and introduce them. So first is the context and objectives, and you've now signed up to a higher diploma in computer science. On the National Framework of Qualifications, this is from their website, you can see where a higher diploma fits in. So it's at the same level as an honours degree, and most of you will have completed an honours degree in order to be eligible to do the course. So it's at the level that you may have spent 3 or 4 years doing an honours degree, but you're going to be doing it a lot quicker. So a higher diploma is characterized by the pace at which you're going to be learning. Some of the key program features of this program are immersion, specialization, and industrial partnership or industry partnership. So let's talk about immersion in computing knowledge. So these are some quotes. Participants will be graduates who've already obtained significant transferable skills by comparison with undergrad students. So we've said a higher diploma is similar in level to an honours degree, but because you've already done a degree, you can bring those skills that you've learned on those programs to this program and be able to operate at a faster pace. So the pace is going to be significantly higher than for normal undergraduate programs. And this is going to be particularly evident with the 10 credit modules that you will be doing. You'll do a 10 credit and a 5 credit module each semester. You're going to find the 10 credit modules really do work at a much higher pace. In semester 1, we're going to be getting immersed in the fundamentals of computing, and specifically in computer programming. This is a higher diploma in computer science, and the aim of the program is to make you software developers. So at the end of the program, you should be able to enter the jobs market at least a junior developer role. So to get underway, as you've been learning in the interviews you did for the program with Eamon, this is about code. This program is all about code. So if you are not interested in code, you're probably in the wrong place, okay? And come speak to us. I would have hoped that that is very clear if you've already registered. We talk about deepening and specialization in semester 2, a specialization reflecting the strengths and demonstrated on the program to date. I have a graphic there for full stack developer, and the program is honed in computing science. We're homing in on trying to make you a full stack developer. Now, the full stack developer is a bit like a unicorn, and many people say they don't really exist, or they're very far and few between. So we will be full stack orientated. So you will prefer certain aspects of this full stack software role, and you will specialize in some of those areas. Full stack knows about all of the areas and is stronger in some areas than others. So the entire program is geared towards, and all the modules that you will do are geared towards addressing each of these circles that you see on screen. So front end, interacting with the screen, what the graphic user interface looks like. Back end servers, running web servers and databases, managing all of that through DevOps, and all of that put together makes you a full stack developer. Participants will be expected to select their specialization based on their achievement in semester 1 and their own ambitions. Probably a little bit outdated at this stage. We've actually specialized the course. There isn't really any choice in modules at this stage. It is specialized and focused in on an area. Where you will choose your specialization is towards the end of the program when you choose your final project. And the third aspect then is industry experience and professional development. So you have at the end of the program an internship or work placement. And we work very closely with a whole number of partners who will be giving talks throughout the entire program. And we work very closely with them to keep the program up to date, to keep tweaking everything. So we do have a good relationship with many companies, and that's growing all the time. So at the end of the program, the last thing you will do is go out on work placement if you choose to do so. And as part of that, you will do a final project, which brings together all the aspects of the course. So let's look at the semesters and the modules. I should say, you know, please stop me up at any stage if you want to ask anything, okay? We've got 4 semesters. Semester 1 is what you've just started. So we're starting in January, and January to June is our first semester. Second goes from June to December. Third one from January to June 23, and then from June to December 23 is semester 4. And one thing that you may or may not have copped at this stage is that the work placement and project overlaps, so it goes beyond semester 4. So your work placement is the last thing that you can do. It's 4 to 6 months in duration, and you can start at any time from June 2023 to May 2024. Don't have to worry about it for the moment, but just flagging that this is the layout of the course. So our full stack developer, if we look at how the course ties into those different aspects of a developer, front end, back end, servers, databases, and DevOps. These are cards representing each of the modules that you will be doing throughout the various semesters. So over on the on the left-hand side, we have programming and web development. You're going to start with these 2. We'll then take a look at full stack development 1. And that will be up to this summer. That's literally what you will cover between now and the summer: programming, web development, full stack development 1. Then we'll move into doing databases and web, actually after getting, and computer systems and networks. And then after that, we'll complete the remaining modules. All of these cards are laid out to show you how they are addressing the various aspects of being a full stack developer. And we're going to go into those in detail today, or at least for the first year. I'll introduce all of these cards in a few minutes, but this is the overview, if you like. So 10 modules plus work placement and project, web development and programming. So learning to code and learning to then use that code to create web pages and small applications that run on the web. Then you'll take that and build interactive applications using JavaScript and some frameworks in web development too. You'll be storing your information in a database. So you learn about how to model data. Computer systems and networks then is the physical side of computing. So using Raspberry Pis, for example, sensors, and how to read information from those. And then further in, we go into more software development and looking at more detailed issues like software security, everything to do with vulnerabilities, threats, security, and cryptography. For developer operations, it's managing software in the cloud. And then finishing up with full stack development, creating single page applications, the system that you're actually using, tutors, to see all of these modules is an example of full stack development. And parallel to this, we have mobile app development, creating applications that run on the mobile phone. And currently that's native mobile app development. So creating Android applications, looking at how that's done and building live applications that run on your mobile devices. So that's the 10 modules. There's also work placement and project, which we'll be covering. And that literally brings everything together. So everything you've learned on the course prepares you to go on a work placement to start your career as a software developer. And when you go on that work placement, you're creating some piece of work which you will write up as a project, or you can build a project, something that you always wanted to create. And we'll get into the details of that later. Now, along the way, we have a number of workshops. Today is your first workshop. This is workshop 1, and that's induction. But throughout the 2 years, you'll do some additional workshops where we bring in our industry partners to give you specific talks about various things, whether it's, the agile process, whether it's using GitHub, whether it's using, and don't worry if you don't know what these terms mean, you're not supposed to at this stage, helping you with CVs, getting ready for interviews, and so on. So there's 4 one-day workshops across the 2 years, and the first one is workshop 1. We also have Life, etc. Life, etc. We mentioned Laura earlier, and Laura will be here at 11, and she'll be going through that. So let's take a look at what that means in credits. And these numbers are probably important for you to consider when it comes to managing your time. How much time it's going to take to complete the module, how much time you need to be putting in. And I suppose what you want to take away from the screen is a standard module is 5 credits. And in each semester, you'll have a 5-credit module, but you'll also have a second module, which could be 10 credits. If that module is 10 credits, it's actually going to take you twice as long, and you need to put twice the time into it and twice the effort. Even though it's 2 subjects, they are weighted completely different. And the credits do represent the effort that is going to be needed in order to complete it. You notice that there's a couple of 2.5 credit modules there as well. And the idea of the 2.5 credit modules is to facilitate us being able to run the program and complete it in 2 years while adhering to holiday periods. So, for example, you will see, where is it? You'll have a 2.5 credit module after you complete web development and programming. And it will be 6 weeks long instead of being 12. Okay. So it will happen a lot quicker. You'll be able to do it a lot quicker, and there'll be a lot less in it. So I'm just flagging this in relation to effort and the effort that's required and the time that's required. Okay, so in total, although a higher diploma in computer science actually only requires 60 credits, this course is a 90 credit module by design. And the reason for that is the importance of the work placement and the project to employers. So that's where the 90 comes from. So this is what we're going to be focusing on semester 1 for the next while. We have workshop 1, which is induction, structure, schedules, handbook, what we're doing today. And then 2 modules for the next 15 weeks or so, web development and programming. You're going to be immersing into software development, systems analysis and testing, web design, and user experience. When you've completed that, we'll have another workshop. This will be around about June. And that will introduce, again, the next set of modules that are coming, including web development, computer systems and networks, and databases. And you'll be doing those up until Christmas. So you'll start with the web development, then move into computer systems and networks and databases in parallel. We learn a bit more about those from the lecturers themselves later on today. Semester 3, full stack development, software security, and DevOps. Again, each one of the semesters will have a workshop to introduce what's coming. The workshop is like an induction. It will make sure that you have the tools that you're going to need to take the program set up in advance of the classes starting. And that way, if there's any issues, we can iron them out before classes start. Semester 4, again, workshop 4, we've got full stack development and mobile application development. And project and work placement also take place in semester 4, but we've actually allowed this to go beyond the 2 years. And this is a feature of Springboard. They are quite happy for work placement and project to go beyond 2 years, while the rest of the course must be completed in the 2 years. So calendar and timetables. So here's the actual calendar for this year. You can see the yellow here is the days that programming will take place this semester. So programming happens on a Monday and it happens on a Wednesday. And web development is in purple. Web development happens on Thursdays. So what you're looking at is what we refer to as the Agile semester. We'll be learning about Agile, but it's basically being Agile and being able to react to change and to do things focused in an iterative way and to build in time so that we can complete what we need to on time. Our experience is that on most courses in education, if you miss a week, you're fine. If you miss 2 weeks, that's fine. Starting to get worried. If you miss 3 weeks, our experience is most people drop out if they miss 3 weeks in a semesterized system. So by giving you 3 weeks of classes and then a reading week, we are trying to set you up for success. This follows the Agile process, which is the concept of a sprint, 2 or 3 weeks of work, and then you review it. And we're effectively building in a reading week to do that review or catch up, if you like, as it happens in education. So you always know you're 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and then 3 weeks on, and then you're finishing up. Okay, so that's what you're going to be focused on between now and May. these two modules, programming and web development, and you know what days they're on now and what dates. Okay. Underneath that, you'll see in yellow, we have ICT Skills 1. And this is one of the 2.5 credit modules I mentioned. So it'll take you from when you finish up in May, it gets started on the 1st of June, and it runs through June. Okay. We have workshop 2 flagged for the 16th of June, and we may need to come back to you on that, but as we're planning right now, that's where our workshop will be. So if we focus in then on what that map was showing us, we have programming and web development each week, 12:15 to 2 o'clock is the times. And certainly at the start of the semester, we will be running our classes live. As we get towards the end of the semester, we may transition into on-demand classes where they're pre-made and you can interact with them, and we will provide some live support. But initially, we'll do things live, and we'll check in with you to see how that's going. So 12:15 to 2 o'clock is the times that you would ideally be available to take the class. And I know there is no time that suits every student. What we're saying to you is, particularly in the first 2 to 3 weeks, certainly the first 3 weeks, if you can at all, if you can make the time to take those classes live, it would be extremely beneficial. We understand if you can't. If you can't, you'll get to watch the classes back afterwards. They will be available pretty much immediately after the class. The technology that we're using will allow you, it won't actually distinguish whether you're taking the class live or on demand. It'll be completely transparent to you. Let's look at the assessment schedule. It's terrible to be talking about assessments so early, but this just lays everything out so you know exactly where you're going from day one. So if we look at, again, the mustard color here, programming, you do 3 weeks of classes. At the end of the 3 weeks, you'll get your first assignment. You can be working on that during the reading week, and you'll have another week after it to complete. So classes will come back on week 4, but you will be in your own time working on your assignment. And this is where Slack is going to be very useful, where you will be posting questions if you get stuck, looking for help from your classmates and from us. So that's week 4 is when things really heat up, if you like. The assignment number 2 then is in the, it goes out after week 6. Again, you've got a reading week to start on it. You have 2 more weeks to represent that assignment is going to be a bit more involved than the first one. And parallel to that, with web development, you'll see web development starts in week 4. You got quite a long time to do it. It's 4 weeks to do the first web assignment. And to reduce your workload, Eamon and I are coming together to give you a joint assignment. So instead of doing 2 assignments, you'll do 1 assignment that will be marked for both programming and web development. And that will go out in week 10. And again, you'll have about 5 weeks to complete that. The assignments very often will have interviews with them. Okay, so let's look at some of the individual projects. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I'm just conscious of the time. All of this is on our website for you to go through in more detail yourself, but we'll just introduce it here. So we've already spoken about programming, and I'm going to be going into that in detail this afternoon, so I won't labor it. You've had a chance to do some of the labs. We're going to be looking at processing to get started with. Then we'll move into using IntelliJ in week 6. You're programming in Java in this module. Web development, you'll be doing with Eamon. HTML, CSS, using IntelliJ and Java and GitHub. We just hold on there. So building, what is the fundamentals of a web page? Building up a web page. and moving that on then to building a simple web app, an application. So at the end of the semester, you'll have something up on the web, you'll have code, you'll have some interaction. Web Development 2 continues the journey into web application development, establishing JavaScript programming language and Node.js JavaScript on the server, using JSON for database, storing your data, and completing a web application using all of these tools. At this stage, we're looking more at agile methods as well. So we're looking at JavaScript, Node, and GitHub, and using the Glitch platform to deploy your applications initially. Computer systems and networks then, getting down lower level with the hardware. So Linux is going to be a feature here, using virtual machines and hardware such as the Raspberry Pi. Databases, you need to store your data somewhere, persist that data. So building and modeling data, creating ER diagrams, storing them in databases, configuring those databases, and they could be SQL, structured query language, or no SQL databases. So you'll get a full tour of database technologies, and you will be using them all on this program. If we look at full stack development then, it's JavaScript, Node, APIs, using frameworks, and looking at the front end using technology called Svelte. Software security, no good having a system that everybody can hack into and get your information. So how do you write a system from the get-go to ensure that the data is protected, that only people can have access to what they should have access to? So this will get into cryptography, security, threats, and vulnerabilities. For example, you know, the technologies behind taking your payments on a website. You don't just put your credit cards on a website. There's a lot more that goes into it, obviously. Full stack development then, 2 is looking at React, which is a very popular technology today, the most popular one currently. And you'll be building applications front end with React. DevOps then is all about cloud computing, scripting, scaling, automation, and monitoring. So building and configuring, managing essential services like network infrastructure and applications that run on those, like web servers, the database server, and so on. And then how to automate that. So while you can sit at a command line or interface and configure all your software, can you write a computer program then to automate that process? Then mobile app development is all about building Android applications that will run on your mobile device. Now, that's the main modules, the opportunities for further study when you complete this course. And we're going to say when you complete this course, we're going to be very optimistic. I'm sure you all will. There's an opportunity then to use what you've learned to go on and do further study, so you can move from your higher diploma to a master's in enterprise software systems. And we've had students complete this course and go on to do that. Some of the lecturing team are shared on both programs. So there you go. It brings us back to here, which is the slide that we started talking about. We want to create a software developer. It's called a full stack developer. And you can see how all of those modules now are addressing those circles that we spoke about. So I'll just pause for a second. If anybody has any questions, we can take questions at this stage if you wish. Just switch on your mic and then shout, or post in Slack, whichever you're comfortable with.
Looks like you scared us in the morning itself.
Yeah. The nice stuff comes later. Laura will set you all down. We're just scaring you at the start. Yeah. Thanks, Abby. It's the big picture. We're throwing you in. It's called immersion. We're just throwing you in the deep end. But it's just to give you a big picture of the whole course if you didn't already have it. Okay.
And just make the point that when I was speaking to you all in the last few months, I did try to get a sense of, were you completely new to this field, or did you have some experience already? And as you can expect from courses like this, there'll be a mixture. The majority of you, though, are new. So like Abby here, the majority might be a little bit puzzled at all this alphabet soup we're throwing at you. About a third of you will be, I would think, be familiar with some of it, but most with very little. And that's fine. We're not trying to frighten you, as Colin says, just to give you a broad picture, because I think, as we also discussed during our chats, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We'll keep using that phrase. You don't have to be a master of the universe after one semester. You've got a full 2 years to immerse yourself in this discipline, and you take it at your own pace. That's one of the key lessons we've learned over the years. It is occasionally a problem if you go at it too hard, or if you become too daunted initially by the range of new topics you've got to cover. You're only doing 2 modules at a time ever. And perhaps always worth remembering that the other modules are of no interest until you start doing them.
Question, guys. Just from previous years, what's the kind of completion rate looking like from previous years? Just out of curiosity, really.
Yeah, I can tell you that. So the norm for computing is it 55% dropout? Okay, in computing courses worldwide. Okay. Now, on this program, the students that started on this program this time last year, of the people who signed up, 80% completed the first year.
That's good.
Okay. And some of the people who signed up never started. They didn't come to induction, right? So it's actually higher.
Okay.
I know in programming, 100% of the students completed those that were got 100% of the students completing the assignment, the final assignment. That was a first. So we have been developing this online program. Before it was an online program, it was a face-to-face program, which ran for, I think it was about 8 years, Eamon. Mm-hmm. And this is our 4th year now, fully online. There's a lot of work going into to ensure that you have a good student experience, and that we are tracking you to help you succeed. And we take that really seriously. We really go the extra mile to make sure that, we can get as many people over the line as possible. We don't do the work for you, but we do help you succeed. And I would say that's probably one of our strongest attributes on the course.
Yeah, Laura will probably touch on this in her session at 11:30. Often not completing is often to do with life, etc., as we call it, other things intervening. Everybody is working more or less. That's quite a challenge to take on a program like this while you're working. And of course, there's also life issues that intervene. So we have had people taking a bit longer to complete the program than the 2 years, but we generally try to focus everybody on the 2-year time span, if at all possible.
And one other comment on it, I mentioned 80%, the 20% then that didn't, many of those actually achieved what they needed by signing up to the course.
Okay. They got their nugget of information and they were happy with that kind of thing.
No, they got that job.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just by signing up to the course and taking part in it for a while, they were able to make that transition. So they were able to stay in their existing workplace, but change the role.
Okay.
So, you know, it's not straight numbers.
Yeah.
We don't get any ideas. We lose out. If you drop out, we lose out.
One of the other good metrics from the program is the employment rate at the end of it as well. So that's something the lads might be able to give you more information on later as well when we look at work placement.
Okay. So I think next up, we're bang on time, 10:20. Eamon is going to take you through the tutors interface that we use for delivering the entire program. So you'll have a consistent look and feel. It's on your website. It's down as course webs. So Eamon's going to take you through that now.
Thanks, Colm. I think everybody can see my shared screen at this point.
Yeah.
So we've been focusing so far this morning on the content. And for the next half an hour or so, myself and Pete will talk to you about the medium. That is the platforms you're going to be using to learn about the content that Colm has just outlined. First of all, broad view. We've got 4 key services that you'll be interacting with. The first one, which I'm going to focus on now, is tutors, but I'm also going to mention Moodle and YouTube along the way. And Pete is going to come in shortly to give you a more in-depth look at Slack and how we use it. There are slightly different authentication mechanisms for each of these. So again, Pete will talk more about this in a moment. I think everybody is signed up for GitHub, and you need GitHub to log into tutors. GitHub is a separate service. It's nothing to do with us, but it's a very important service for developing your portfolio longer term. You'll be using it in a lot of the modules along the way. And having a GitHub account active from now is good, because your first sign-in is remembered, and anybody looking at your profile on GitHub will see when you first engaged. GitHub is kind of like a social network for developers, but it's really all about hosting the software artifacts you build. In Slack, you've been using a personal email. I think we're happy enough to keep with that for the moment, but there is a process of getting a WIT email to use Moodle, and there's also the WIT email system, which Pete will talk about briefly as well. And finally, we have YouTube. YouTube is where our videos are hosted. You don't necessarily need to visit YouTube because we're providing a player for them, but we do provide links directly to YouTube playlists. So I want to start with tutors, and you've all logged in. You've all landed on the homepage at this point and seen what's there. And it's your primary interface to the labs, which I'll talk about, lectures, PDFs, links to other sites, and videos. Just looks like this. We're using the card metaphor throughout. Each card usually represents a module, or it could be a workshop. We're also hosting cards for your schedule, so you can just at a glance figure out where the schedule is at, because I know everybody's busy and you're all trying to fit yourselves into the schedule we're laying out, and we're trying as much as we can to give you advanced visibility of where you will be when in the at least one semester ahead at any given time. Typically, when you're logged into our tutor system, you're seeing this, what we're calling the navigator, along the top of each screen. And this is quite cryptic. We're just using icons here, although if you hover over anything, you'll see a tooltip to give you an idea what purpose the icon is. Each of these icons is usually a button that takes you somewhere. We have the companions area here, which usually takes you out of tutors. So takes you straight to the Slack channel for the module, takes you into Moodle, which I'll talk about in a moment, or takes you directly to the YouTube playlist. So when you press one of these buttons, you're leaving tutors. It will open in a separate window, so it doesn't close tutors. You're just being taken elsewhere to a related aspect of the module you're inspecting. either the Slack channel or the Moodle page or the YouTube playlist for the module. Range of other buttons. We've got overall module index. We've got a lab text search. We're still working on that at the moment. I hope I'll have an update on that shortly. Module syllabus should appear on the top left. On the bottom right, all labs, all slides. It's just a quick way of seeing all the slide decks or all the labs, and also later on all the videos in this context on the given module you're in. You may not use that at all, or you might find it handy if you're looking for something specific. On the bottom left here, we've got our breadcrumb navigator. This gives you a feel for the structure of where you currently are in the given module. In this example here, I'm on week 3. I'm on box and grid. I'm in the web development module, and the program home takes you back to the top level view. We've done a bit of work on layouts. So if you're on a mobile phone, you'll want to switch to compact layout so you can just see a bit more on screen. And you can also move to a dark or black theme. I think that's all the vogue these days. I'm still a bright screen person, but I think almost everybody will probably start using dark fairly quickly. We're experimenting with Tutors dyslexic theme. That's kind of been interesting and fun to work on. You can try it out. My sense is that there are slightly overrepresentation of dyslexic people in our industry for some reason. So we thought it was interesting to see if we could see how that's supported. That's largely around color schemes and also around weighting of fonts to make it a little bit more convenient for people who are dyslexic. We've also checked all our color schemes for color blindness. Again, it's a curious thing that's often overrepresented in developers. We also have another feature here called Tutors Time and Tutors Live. And I'd just like to talk about that for a moment. Before I get into it though, this is it. It won't change much from what it is now for the rest of the course, although we will be introducing updates occasionally. And if we do, we usually post to a course webs channel. So on the homepage, you're linking to an individual module. So web and programming will have their own card. And once you enter those cards, then you're living in the module page itself. Typically, we've got one card for 1 week or 1 day's worth of content. Typically, it's going to be 1 week for the program we're working on at the moment. So these numbers here represent weeks. They won't all appear in one go. Each week, a new card will appear, maybe the day before delivery or maybe a bit earlier. Get a chance to maybe have a quick peek at what might be coming up. And then the card itself will be containing the core content for that given week. Cards, when you open the card for a topic, you're taken into the week's work, if you like. And this will almost always contain the topic video at the top, and then one or more subtopics. And these subtopics will be usually the slide presentations and the labs for the week. I'll talk about the labs in a moment. Slide presentations are PDFs, and the icon here and color gives you an indication of what it is. And the labs, then we've got a little flask icon, means you're performing or building or exploring in a practical context a specific topic. If you click on any of these, you've probably all seen this now at this point. You get our topic navigator. You can see on the right here, I've got everything in the week 2's content. I can see week 2 has got 1 video, database design. It's got 3 subtopics containing a couple of slide decks each, and then a lab, logical data modeling lab. These labs are important. And in fact, for any given module, you may be going to labs first. Labs are designed around a series of steps, and each step represents something you are doing on your own workstations. You're creating a project, you're doing copying and pasting from the code areas in black usually. You're trying out the result of maybe pasting in that code. You're following some more instructions on other things to do in that context. And you're perhaps then looking at a set of exercises that you're going to attempt, which will be building on the work you've done so far in the lab, and which will be relying on the theory or background information that will have been covered that week in the topic. These may be captured in the slides or in the slides and the video that you will have looked at. So a typical day, if you like, for a given module would be one lab, sometimes two, but usually one, supported by a video, backed up by a set of slides, and also supported by a Slack channel for that module. You may be switching out to that Slack channel, asking a few questions, tuning in to see has anybody got the same problem you have, maybe heading off on a direct chat with a small group to see if you can crack some particular problem. Or maybe in the labs, you've solved something and you see somebody else has the similar issue that you solved and you paste in a solution. The videos for the live sessions, as Colin mentioned, will be on YouTube Live. That's just the technology. It will appear in tutors as a video, more or less as I'm showing it here. Usually we'll appear periodically on the card itself superimposed. So you get a sense of our presence if it's live. Sometimes we leave the cameras off and we're just working through some specific topic. Almost always the slides being used will be in the video will be part of the deck that appears underneath the video presentation. Sometimes we will be putting links to videos from slide deck cards. These will be links to supporting videos, or they may be links to the main video with a start and end time. So if you're trying to figure out something about triggers and you know there's an hour-long video above and you can't remember where it was, well, we may be providing links directly to minute 23, and there's 2 minutes there on triggers perhaps that you want to look up in a rush or at some point later. We also have Moodle. Moodle is an e-learning platform as well. It can do a lot of what Tutors does. We won't be using it though in that context. We'll be using it almost always just for assignment submissions and for giving you feedback to your grades. So there's nothing to learn here in Moodle. The link to Moodle will usually take you to just one page, and that page will have a section for each of the modules. And almost always, all you'll see there will be the assignment drop boxes, as we call it. So when it comes up to time for a project to be submitted, typically you're zipping up the project files. So you'll have to learn how to zip a folder. That's straightforward enough. And you're dropping it in here. It'll be recorded in here against your identity and timestamped. And at some point later on, when we've corrected it, you will see your feedback, how the assignment went, your grade, and some comments. Two other aspects, which I just spend a few minutes on before I hand you over to Pete. We're interested in how you're getting on. We're interested in the time you're spending on parts of the modules and the program overall. So we have an experimental system to record some of that interaction. We're calling that tutors time. This is not part of your assessment. It has very little reflection on your achievements, and your learning styles might be quite different from ours or from your classmates. So the time number or the time figures recorded here are purely observational. We use them for research purposes. You may use them to keep track of how you're doing, a bit like screen time is a feature of Apple devices. But it's not something you should be trying to necessarily improve or get a better score on. We are recording it by hooking up with GitHub. So when you sign in, you sign up with your GitHub ID to tutors. One thing I would ask you all to check today would be, is your profile got your correct full name? About 10% of you, it isn't currently. GitHub is a little bit tricky sometimes to sign into. And if you don't put in your name explicitly, your identity on GitHub turns up as your email. So I'd ask you to check that and just make sure it's working correctly. And also I'd ask you to make sure you've got your profile picture.
Eamon, just to interrupt there,
Sure.
there's a card on the induction page for today called Tutor Sign Up, and some of you may have just skipped over the details on it, so you can go back and see the full details on how to do all that.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Colin. If it didn't quite go right, you can tell yourself when you activate Tutor's Time, you will see logged in as, and you see an email here instead of your name. And you won't see a proper profile picture. So you can check yourself very quickly, and it's easy enough to fix.
Sorry, I have a question. Should we use the mail.wit.ie email for GitHub, or can we use any like personal email to log in there?
Yeah, that's entirely up to you.
Okay.
So if your account is new, I would probably use whatever email you plan to keep longer term.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
And you can change that at a later stage anyway. So it's entirely
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So quickly, what you see in Tutor's Time, because we make the data that we're collecting available to you as well. And this is typically what you might see. And the number here is a rough guess at the number of minutes that the page has been open. And you can see here listed out each of the labs in the program. Now this data, it's an experimental system, so it may not be entirely accurate. And as I mentioned, it's interesting for us to collect largely to see the relative complexity of the labs or the time people are spending on labs, and perhaps for us to also review the overall program structure. You also have a calendar view, and this will show how much time you're spending across each of our semester weeks. So we built in the calendar that Colin mentioned earlier in here as well, so you can see each of the weeks and how much time you would have spent online. Now, it's just a rough estimate. It only clocks up when the page of tutors is open in the foreground. If it's in the background, it doesn't clock up. And there may be inaccuracies occasionally. So it's a very crude estimate in general. Now, one thing that's for you, though, is this other feature we're calling Tutors Live. And this is available on the menu. And when you activate Tutors Live, you'll be able to see who is online right now. You'll also be able to see their profile picture drawn from GitHub. You'll see what topic and what lab they're currently working on. You can opt out of this if you like via the appear offline, but we're encouraging you to not opt out and just volunteer your presence information if you like. In the early weeks, it mightn't be particularly useful or interesting, but later on, when you're working on a lab or you're working on an assignment, when you're logging in the evening and you have an hour or two to do a bit of work, might be fun maybe to know who else is online. Might be interesting to see what they're working on. And maybe you might want to reach out to somebody who's on the same lab as yourself, or maybe who's a bit ahead of you and you might want to see how's it going, or a bit behind, you might offer some help. Again, it's an experimental system, and the idea is to recreate what it would be like to be in an actual lab environment, that is in a full-time program in the college. In the college, when we have practical sessions, we're scheduled into a lab, students come in, they know who else is around there, usually working on their own, but they get a sense of who else is busy. And maybe by looking over somebody's shoulder, they can see that we're working on something, and there's a sense of collective effort or community, which is the purpose of this feature. The project itself is open source. We're a little team here building this platform. Delighted to issue an open invitation to experiment with this platform yourself, or to even join the team, maybe at a later stage. We've got 3 students in there, one of whom has actually redesigned our interface. The other has looked at our accessibility requirements and our color scheme, and the other is working on some core engineering for us. So we're more than happy to see you join that at a later stage. We've also opened it out to anybody to experiment with. So if you go to this link here, you get instructions on creating your own tutors course on this platform. Completely separate, completely decentralized. You don't need any account or anything from us. It's a completely open system, and you might find it fun to experiment with occasionally. Okay, that's tutors. There'll be more to learn about in that context as we get through the course, and we'll be changing it as we go along. Take any questions now, or we're going to make sure you get to your break at 11 because it's a long day. So I might hand over to Pete to take you deeper into Slack at this stage.
Thanks very much, Eamon. First of all, does anyone have any questions on tutors before I move on swiftly? One of the things that you spoke about, Eamon, that might be of interest to people is the live classes every week. You saw on the tutors page there where there's a video at the top of each of the weeks of classes. The live classes are actually live streamed on YouTube as well. They won't be in here in Zoom. So the live classes will be on YouTube Live, which means you can join a class a few minutes after it starts and catch up at 1.5 speed. You can press pause on a live class. You can rewind the live class and catch up again during a break. So YouTube Live offers quite a lot of additional functionality for us. And I always find that one interesting when we get started with it. So again, you just go to the tutors page for the class for that week, and you'll see the YouTube video there, and you'll press play, and that'll be the live class. There's no coming through to Zoom.
He keeps telling me I'm much more interesting at 1.5 speed. So
it can be very useful when you're watching a class back to watch back at 1.5 speed, or even 1.75 if you get tuned into it. It can save you a lot of time. So my name is Peter Windle. I work with Colm and Eamon on both programming and web development modules. I do a lot of the labs for those modules. So we spoke already about the lunchtime classes, but we also have labs mostly in the evenings. So over the next couple of days, I will be putting up a poll where you can vote for the most suitable times. I'll be giving you some options on maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evenings for programming, and then web development on Thursday evening. And you'll be able to select the most suitable time, and I'll be there to support you online on Slack. And if we need to do a one-to-one, we can do it here on Zoom. It'll be very easy to get all that working, and you'll be able to share your screen in Zoom, and you'll also be able to give me control so I can kind of skip through your code and control your screen using Zoom as well. So it's all very secure and very easy to use. So that's my role on the program. Among other things, I'll be working with some of you on the projects, I'm sure, later on in it, and many other areas. So I'll be your first port of call for support on those modules. But really your first port of call is Slack, which brings me to my set of slides. So bear with me a second while I share that. So you should be able to see my screen and my slides now. Yep, perfect. So before I get to Slack, I'm going to do some housekeeping first and talk about our accounts in WIT. So aside from your GitHub account, which hopefully you've already signed up for, if not, you'll need to sign up to that to access the learning materials in tutors anyway. So there are 2 types of accounts in WIT, which gets very confusing very quickly. The first is your WIT username. And that is your student number at wit.ie. And that's used for quite a few different platforms and applications. So for example, it can be used for your WIT computer logins. If you're ever on campus or in the library, it can be used to log into Moodle, your online services, the timetabling system, the system for getting your exam results, even your OneDrive and Office 365. So you'll have full access to Office 365. You'll be able to download all of the Microsoft Office applications because you have a WIT username. So that's simply saying your student number and the domain, the company that you're working for is WIT, or sorry, that you're attending college in is wit.ie. So it's your student number at wit.ie. And then separately, we have your student email account, and any official communications from the college will go through that. So that's your student email. You also have access to Google Docs, Drive, YouTube, Hangouts, Teams, etc. I can see Colin smiling because the two account names are so alike. Your student number at mail.wit.ie, it does get a bit confusing. We often have people trying to log into Moodle with their student email address, and it just doesn't work. And then there's a couple of other little funnies with this as well. So when you start in WIT, as you are now, your password will be the same password for both systems. But after 12 months, your password for your WIT username will expire, and those two password systems are not linked. So your WIT email account will have the old password and your username will have the new password. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can go to the WIT website. You can go to students up on the top right on that hamburger menu on the top right. Go to students and study supports and computer services. And there's also a self-service password reset service where you can actually register your mobile phone and reset your password. I would advise you to do that immediately. We have students getting to the end of first year now. They're trying to hand up assignments. Their passwords have expired. They can't log into Moodle to hand up their assignments, and they're missing deadlines because of it. So if you have a piece of paper in front of you, write it down. WIT self-service password reset. The best way to find it is to Google that, WIT self-service password reset, and you'll be able to go there and sign up for it. So we've looked at our tutor stack, our stack of technologies from tutors, Moodle already, and I'm going to look at Slack and Zoom in more detail now. So Slack is used for all communications on the program. As Colin said earlier, email, you won't be using email to communicate with us anymore. We used to have a situation where we had chats on Zoom during a class. We had messages in Moodle. We had forums in Moodle. We had emails between staff and students, and there was no way for students to communicate with each other. So it just all got very confusing. So we've just leveled it out and we've chosen Slack. Slack is a peer-to-peer communications. In other words, from you to your colleagues as students, or to ourselves, from one to another. And it's great for peer support, for self-help. So if you have a question, the best place and the most timely place you'll get an answer for that question is by posting it in the channel for that module. So if that's programming fundamentals, ask your question in programming fundamentals. If you see a question you know the answer to, you can answer it. You can help your classmates out, because when you have a question, you'll want to get an answer as quick as possible. And it might not be us answering it immediately, but we'll be checking back through the answers to make sure that they're right. And really, it's about community building. And, you know, if you were on campus today having an induction, you'd be going for a cup of coffee, you'd be getting to meet each other. If you were on campus taking a course, you'd be able to turn to the person next to you and ask them a question. You'd be going for coffees, you'd be standing outside classrooms talking to each other, or you'd be, you know, waiting for a lecture to come into a classroom and you'd be talking to each other. So Slack replaces all of those interactions. But more importantly as well, Slack is used in industry. It's ubiquitous across the tech industry. So it's a real transversal skill that you'll be able to bring forward to whatever job you go into later on. So just have, you know, getting back to the academic side of things, a quote here, when you look at online classes and online education, community structures play an important part, actually in face-to-face classes, online. So if we didn't have community structures, if we didn't have these friendships and classmates, it'd be a very lonely place, and students wouldn't be able to work together on group projects, help each other through tricky material, or share their interest and passion in certain subjects. So learning communities play a significant role in ensuring that students remain motivated to succeed. And it can be, especially when you've got, as we say, life, etc. You've got your work life, family and study balance. It can be very difficult to get that right, but it's great to have the support and community on Slack. And reaching for that inspirational quote for you, just to be completely cheesy, isolation leads to higher dropout rates. It's 100% true. And if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling alone in the program, it can be very, very demotivating, and you can find yourself questioning your will to keep going. But that's why we're all here for each other, and we include ourselves in that as a program team. So that brings us to Slack and what Slack actually is. So Slack is a communication platform. There's a couple of different things you need to know, and I'm sure you figured out already. So the channels that we've been talking about so far are up on the top left. We've channels for connections, general. We've laptop specs, which will be kind of populating with recommended specifications for laptops that will see you through the complete module. So if you're looking for a laptop as well, or even if you see a spec at a good price, it's a good place to share that. We also have the module channels such as programming fundamentals and web development, and we'll have more as your course progresses. We'll also have assignment channels as we start releasing your assignments. So these are used, the programming fundamentals and web development channels are used for discussing your week-to-week content on the module. And then we'll have assignment specific ones so that you can keep all that assignment content and conversation together. And then you have the option for direct messages in Slack as well. So you'll be able to click on any of the names and start a conversation with them. So you'll see myself and Colin there. You'll see some of your classmates there, and you might not be able to see some of those names, and I'll show you how to search for those in a moment. You'll also have the option then in the, I suppose the right-hand side is your timeline, your wall of conversation. And at the bottom, your usual type here to send your message. And a little plus on there, you can double tap that to select or upload files from your computer. You can also, there's a lot of different ways of sharing content. So you can drag and drop a file in there. You can copy and paste a screenshot in there as well. So literally Control-C or even print screen and Control-V to paste that into the text area there, and that will paste the actual screenshot, which is very useful when we're trying to troubleshoot a problem. So you can either copy the text from your program or your error that you're having, or you can send a quick screenshot, and it gives people the exact context of what you might be having an issue on, such as this. This is processing, which you'll get to know over the next week or two if you haven't done the lab already. And if you have an error, you can see the error there. So a quick screenshot can save you a lot of writing and typing. So you can click on programming fundamentals and post in your issue that you're having. And again, if you see someone having an issue, we've got a huge mix of abilities and experience here on the program, and it's fantastic to have it. That brings a couple of issues with it. One is that it can seem daunting if you're new to programming or web development and you have some of the experts having conversations that you don't understand. They can be a little bit more vocal on Slack than the newbies. So fear not. There's a lot of people in the silent majority that are quietly wondering what the hell they're talking about at the same time as well. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be scared by it, because it is only a minority that will be kind of flying ahead on the materials and kind of being a bit more vocal on Slack. So that's an important point. So that's one of the issues. And then the other issue is that you'll see those more experienced people hopefully stepping in to help the noobs as well, and giving you a lift. That's not a derogatory term. That's just a nerd term for it. So, so yeah, always post to the public channels on Slack to get a quick response. Failing that, a direct message, but we'll be keeping an eye in throughout the week. We've got the standard labs that we'll do 3 or 4 hours a week, where I'm actually at the computer in the evenings if you have problems when you're doing the labs, and we'll be checking in on Slack throughout the week to make sure any of the problems or any questions on the public channels are being answered as well. So again, for uploading content for discussion, you can click that plus button down below. It gives you a load of options, or you can double click on that button and it will allow you to upload content straight away. So you just select your file and it'll bring it in. So that could be a processing file or a HTML file. Again, if you have a problem, you can post it in. You can post in sections of code as well. When you have those, there's a code formatting option at the bottom so you can see it here, the little brackets. So that'll allow you to post in some code and it will format it like that. And you can ask the question of the lecturer and the lecturer will get back to you. So again, I mentioned one-to-one direct messages. You can click on column's name or my name and you can start typing your message. You can also click the plus sign beside direct messages. And that will allow you to type in multiple names at the top. So you can start a group conversation with Colm and I if you want to get a response. But again, your quickest response is going to be on the public channel. And that's useful as well if you want to discuss anything privately in terms of your work-life balance. If you're having any issues, that's the best way to reach out to us as well. And then for each of those direct message conversations, there's a call button up in the top right, whether that's a one-to-one or a group conversation. So you can see that call button and that will initiate a Zoom call in Slack. So that takes me to Zoom. You can share your screen by clicking on the share screen button on the bottom of your screen. And then it'll ask you to select a screen or a window. So if you select, say, processing, we'll only be able to see processing. So if you switch to the output from processing, we won't be able to see it. So we recommend that you share your screen and that will share your everything that's on your screen. So just be cautious of what you have on it as well. We've just had students with personal emails and whatever that we probably shouldn't be seeing. So if you are sharing your screen, just be cautious of what you might have up on it. And that takes me to the next point. WIT students have Zoom accounts, or you can sign up for Zoom accounts for free and you get unlimited meeting duration and you get up to 300 participants in your Zoom meeting. So you can go to wit-ie.zoom.us and click on sign up, but you must use your student email account. Bonus points for anyone who can tell me the format of the student email account and see if you took notice of that. So you can pop that into Slack. So I'm going to use this as I have 2 minutes left to do some quick exercises on Slack. So I'm going to open up, actually, here's an important one. I haven't added the workshop 1 channel for today. So you can see my Slack now, can you? Great. So if you click on the plus button beside channels, you can browse all of the available channels. And I can now join workshop 1. It's useful to do that every so often because we've had students who get to the end of their final assignment only to realize that there was a programming assignment channel that they could have been following all along and they've missed out on all that valuable conversation. So it's useful to check in on the available channels by clicking on the channel browser and joining workshop 1. So now when I go to workshop 1, I want you to click on reply. So you'll hover over that message and you can reply in a thread. So that speech bubble at the right hand side, I want you to reply in a thread. So again, this keeps the conversation together and something Colm will break your hearts with during the live classes if you're not replying in a thread. So does anyone know the student email format? Thank you very much. So we have 4 replies and thank you, Martin. Yep, at mail.wit.ie. Perfect, well done. And so my next question is, I'm going to post in a poll here so I can type in poll. Have you used Slack before? And that should give you a simple poll where you can, oh, that's the wrong course. So you can see people replying there. Have you used Slack before? Majority, vast majority are no. It's 11 a.m. That's all of my slides. I think, let me just double check. Yeah, that's it for me. Bang on time. So look, that's a quick guide to Slack. It's great to have you replying in the thread conversation and use those polls as well. I know Colm will be using those polls or other polls during the classes too. So thanks very much, everyone, and look forward to working with you on both web development and programming.
Thanks, Pete.
Oh, any questions? If you want to stick around or if you want to run away, that's fine too.
Yeah, we'll pause for questions if there are any there. That got through quite a bit there. So we've made a few notes along the way as well in the workshop. That WIT self-service reset, can't overstress how important you should do that today. And the reason for doing it today is you wait till tomorrow, you're going to forget. And when you need it is probably when there's no service available. So by registering for the self-service reset, it means that you are in control of changing your password. And if you don't, you know, in the past, it could take 3 or 4 days to get it done, which means when you're submitting assignments, you don't have access to what you need. So please do look up that WIT self-service reset and make sure you do that.
Can't stress that one enough, Colin. There was a lot of people over Christmas trying to submit assignments, and of course, no one in WIT works over Christmas, only us silly people, but we can't reset passwords. We've no control over that area. So I've just sent you the link to it in Slack. You can scroll down on that page and click on password registration, and that will allow you to sign up for it. And then if you ever forget that password, Google WIT password reset and click on that button on the right-hand side.
Very good. So I'm not looking, but I'm sure Laura's here. Laura?
I'm here.
There you go.
How are you?
So I'm just introducing Laura before we break for tea. And you want me to put them into breakout rooms, Laura?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Laura. I will introduce myself properly after the tea break. But you know, the way if you're in a lift and it's particularly long and, you know, it's that awkward kind of feeling of you don't know what to say and you don't want to start a conversation. Well, that's what it can be like for you guys when you're trying to do your very first tea break, virtual tea break together online. So just, I would recommend that you go maybe now, like take about 10 minutes. If you can go into the breakout room first and then just turn off your camera and your mic, go and get yourself a cup of tea and then come back into your breakout rooms. And just so that you don't have the awkward, if you are finding it's an awkward lift situation, I would suggest that you try and find out how many out of you in that breakout room have previous ICT experience. It's just something to get you going. And I look forward to chatting to you after the tea break.
So just before anybody goes anywhere, I'm going to create breakout rooms. You're going to get an invite to go to a room. I'd ask you to accept the invite. It's going to bring you into a room, a sub room, if you like. There'll be 5 or 6 other people in there. And just turn off your camera and turn off your mic and go in, take a break, get a cup of tea or coffee, and then come back. Okay. And we will call you back at 11:30. I'll close the breakout rooms at 11:30, and we'll get back on track. Okay, so get out of the chair now, take a break, and I'm going to create those rooms. So once you accept your invite, off you go. And I'll stop recording.